First contact gone wrong. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars drift past on the main display. 3 months into their patrol route around the outer colonies, and space had been surprisingly quiet. Her coffee mug sat half empty on the command console, steam no longer rising from the dark liquid inside. The Defiant was one of Earth's newer battleships, though to look at her external hull, you might mistake her for a cargo hauler. Humans had learned long ago that looking dangerous often invited trouble. "Captain," called Commander Marcus Chen from his tactical station. The young officer had been with them for 8 months now, transferred from the Mars Defense Fleet. His voice carried just enough tension to make Elena look up from her reports. Long-range sensors are picking up something unusual. Multiple contacts entering the system from the direction of the Veil Nebula. Elena set down her reports and walked over to Marcus's station. The tactical display showed several objects moving toward their position, still too distant for detailed scans. "How many contacts, Commander?" 17 ships, Captain. Configuration unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification signals. Marcus paused, studying his instruments more carefully. Energy signatures are definitely not human, and they don't match any known friendly species in our database. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her science station, her fingers already dancing across holographic displays as she tried to analyze the incoming data. Sarah had been the Defiant's chief science officer for 2 years, and Elena trusted her judgment completely. "Captain, based on their approach vector and formation, these ships are definitely military in nature. They're moving in a standard fleet attack pattern." Elena nodded thoughtfully. First contact with an unknown species was always delicate, but when that contact involved what appeared to be a military fleet, things became much more complex. "Signal General Quarters, but don't activate weapons systems yet. Open a channel to Earth Command and transmit our sensor data. I want them to know what we're dealing with out here." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. These were good people, Elena thought. They'd been working together long enough to function like a well-oiled machine. The Defiant's crew complement was relatively small for a ship of her size, but human automation and AI systems made up the difference. Most species in the galaxy still relied on massive crews to operate their vessels effectively. "Captain," Dr. Kim announced, "I'm getting better readings on those ships now. They're big. The largest one is approximately 3 kilometers long. Their technology appears to be quite advanced, though I'm seeing some interesting anomalies in their energy signatures." Elena raised an eyebrow. "What kind of anomalies?" "Their power generation systems are impressive, but they seem to be running at maximum capacity just for normal operations. Their shield generators are active and drawing enormous amounts of energy, but the shield strength appears to be fixed rather than adaptive. It's almost like they built their technology to be powerful, but not flexible." Commander Chen was studying the alien formation as it grew closer. "Captain, they're not attempting any kind of stealth or deception. If anything, they seem to want us to see them coming. Very confident or very arrogant." 20 minutes later, the alien fleet had closed to within communication range. Elena had used the time to review everything Earth Command knew about this region of space, which unfortunately wasn't much. The Veil Nebula had always been considered uninhabited, but clearly that assumption was wrong. "Captain," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel. They're using a basic mathematical protocol to establish translation parameters." "Put it through," Elena ordered, straightening her uniform. First contact was always a moment for the history books, though she hoped this particular meeting would be more diplomatic than the tactical situation suggested. The main screen flickered and then displayed the image of an alien commander. Elena found herself looking at a creature that stood nearly 3 meters tall, with deep blue skin and 4 arms. Its head was elongated, with large golden eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. The alien wore what was clearly a military uniform, dark red with silver markings that probably indicated rank. "Primitive beings of the small vessel," the alien spoke, its voice automatically translated by the ship's computer. "I am Fleet Admiral Korth of the Viridian Empire. Your presence in this system is noted and will be tolerated briefly while you acknowledge our sovereignty over this region of space." Elena stepped forward, keeping her expression neutral despite the alien's condescending tone. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Ship Defiant. We welcome contact with the Viridian Empire and hope we can establish positive relations between our peoples." Fleet Admiral Korth made a sound that might have been laughter, though it came across as more of a harsh buzzing noise. "Positive relations? Small creature, you misunderstand the situation. The Viridian Empire has claimed this system and the 12 surrounding systems as part of our expansion territory. Your species will be permitted to continue existing under our guidance, provided you demonstrate appropriate submission." Behind Elena, she could hear Commander Chen's sharp intake of breath. Dr. Kim was already analyzing everything she could about the alien communication, probably learning more about their technology from this conversation than they realized they were revealing. "Admiral Korth," Elena replied diplomatically, "Earth and its colonies are sovereign territories. We're certainly interested in peaceful coexistence, but we don't acknowledge any claims of dominion over human space." The alien admiral's forearms gestured in what appeared to be dismissive waves. "Your acknowledgement is irrelevant. We have conquered 47 star systems in the past 50 years. Each species initially protested our rightful expansion, and each eventually learned to appreciate the stability and protection we provide." Elena could see other aliens moving around behind Admiral Korth, and she noticed one of them seemed to be operating some kind of scanning equipment. The creature looked nervous, constantly checking displays and trying to get the Admiral's attention, but Korth appeared to be ignoring his subordinate. "Admiral," Elena said, "we believe there may be some misunderstanding here. Perhaps we could arrange for diplomatic representatives to meet and discuss." "There will be no discussion," Korth interrupted. "There will be compliance. We are now conducting a detailed scan of your vessel to assess your technological development and military capabilities. Do not interfere with this process." Elena felt her jaw tighten slightly, but she maintained her professional composure. "Admiral, scanning our ship without permission would be considered an act of aggression under standard diplomatic protocols." "Diplomatic protocols?" Korth's golden eyes seemed to brighten with amusement. "Small creature, diplomatic protocols exist between equals. You are not our equals. The scan has already begun." Dr. Kim looked up from her station and caught Elena's eye, nodding slightly. The aliens were indeed conducting an intensive scan of the Defiant, but Sarah's expression suggested she wasn't particularly concerned about what they would find. Elena watched the alien admiral's face as his scanning officer continued working behind him. The nervous-looking alien was definitely trying to get Korth's attention now, pointing at displays and making what appeared to be urgent gestures, but the admiral remained focused on the conversation with Elena. "Your vessel is most interesting," Admiral Korth continued. "Primitive construction, basic propulsion systems, minimal armament. Exactly what we expected from a species that has barely achieved interstellar travel. However, your ship is surprisingly large for such crude technology. Do you perhaps compensate for quality with size?" Elena smiled slightly. "We believe in building things to last, Admiral." "Indeed. Well, this has been educational. We will be in contact soon regarding your species' integration into the Empire. Until then, you will remain in this system and await further instructions." The alien admiral turned away from the screen as if the conversation was over, but Elena could see his scanning officer becoming increasingly agitated, waving displays in the admiral's face and pointing at what appeared to be urgent data readouts. "Admiral Korth," Elena said, causing the alien to turn back toward the screen with obvious irritation. "What is it, small creature?" "I believe your scanning officer has something important to tell you." Korth looked annoyed but finally acknowledged his subordinate. Elena couldn't understand the alien language they spoke to each other, but she could see the scanning officer's growing excitement and fear as he showed his displays to the admiral. Korth's golden eyes grew wider as he studied the data, and Alina could see the alien's confident expression beginning to change. The conversation between the two aliens became more heated, with the scanning officer gesturing frantically at his instruments, while Admiral Korth seemed to be demanding explanations. Finally, Korth turned back to face Alina, but his demeanor had changed completely. Aliens became more heated, with the scanning officer gesturing frantically at his instruments, while Admiral Korth seemed to be demanding explanations. Finally, Korth turned back to face Alina, but his demeanor had changed completely. "Captain Vasquez," he said, and for the first time his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "Our scans of your vessel have revealed some unusual characteristics. Perhaps we should postpone our discussion of territorial claims until we can better understand your technological capabilities." Alina's smile grew a bit wider. "That sounds like a reasonable approach, Admiral. We're always happy to engage in peaceful dialogue." The alien admiral was clearly struggling with something, glancing back at his scanning officer, who was now showing him even more data. Whatever they were seeing in their scans was apparently not matching their initial assumptions about human technology. "We will reconvene this conversation at a later time," Admiral Korth said finally. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Defiance bridge in sudden silence. Commander Chen was the first to speak. "Captain, what do you think their scans actually showed them?" Dr. Kim looked up from her science station with a knowing expression. "Well, Commander, they used standard penetration scans designed to analyze typical spacecraft systems. They'd probably got very detailed readings of our outer hull composition, basic power signatures, and general structural layout." "And what would that tell them about us?" Alina asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "They'd see that we have very thick armor plating, redundant power systems, and what appears to be a relatively simple propulsion setup. What they wouldn't understand is that our real defensive systems are integrated at the molecular level throughout the ship's structure. Our weapons systems are completely modular and can be reconfigured in seconds. And our propulsion system—" Sarah paused, grinning. "Well, they probably think we're using basic fusion drives, because that's what our exhaust signature looks like when we're running at minimal power." Commander Chen nodded slowly. "So they think they've scanned a primitive but oversized cargo ship when they've actually scanned a state-of-the-art human battleship running on about 5% of its actual capabilities," Alina finished. "Dr. Kim, what's your assessment of their technology based on what we observed?" "They're definitely advanced, Captain, but their technology seems very rigid. Everything appears to be designed for maximum power output rather than flexibility or adaptability. It's almost like they achieved a certain technological level and then stopped innovating because they were successful enough to dominate everyone they encountered." Alina walked to the main display, looking out at the alien fleet that was now holding position several thousand kilometers away. "They're probably trying to figure out what they actually scanned. My guess is that their readings don't match any known ship type in their databases." "Should we be concerned, Captain?" Commander Chen asked. Alina considered the question for a moment. The Viridian Empire clearly had superior numbers, and their individual ships were larger than the Defiant. Under normal circumstances, 17 enemy warships would be cause for significant alarm. But these weren't normal circumstances. "Commander Chen, if these aliens decided to attack us right now, how long would it take to bring our systems to full combat readiness?" Marcus checked his displays. "All primary systems can be online in approximately 15 seconds, Captain. Secondary systems would be fully operational within 2 minutes." Dr. Kim added her own assessment. "Based on their energy signatures and what we observed during their scans, I estimate the reaction time for combat operations would be somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. They seem to require significant preparation time to reconfigure their systems for different operational modes." Alina nodded. "So we have a significant tactical advantage in terms of response time. What about their actual combat capabilities?" "Unknown, Captain," Commander Chen admitted. "But their weapons appear to be high-energy plasma systems, probably very powerful, but likely not adaptable during combat. Their shields are strong but seem to operate on fixed frequencies. Elena returned to her command chair, picking up her coffee mug and discovering the liquid had gone completely cold. In other words, they're exactly the kind of enemy our systems were designed to counter. Powerful but predictable. The bridge fell quiet as everyone absorbed the implications. The Defiant had been designed by humans who had learned hard lessons about adaptability and flexibility from centuries of warfare. Every system on the ship could be modified, upgraded, or completely reconfigured during combat. The aliens appeared to have followed a completely different design philosophy, prioritizing raw power over adaptability. "Captain," Dr. Kim said quietly, "I don't think they have any idea what they're really dealing with." Elena looked at the alien fleet on her display, 17 massive warships that could probably destroy most civilizations they encountered. The Viridian Empire had clearly grown comfortable with their technological superiority, so comfortable that they had stopped questioning whether that superiority would always be enough. "Dr. Kim, continue monitoring their communications and energy signatures. I want to know everything we can learn about their capabilities and intentions. Commander Chen, maintain yellow alert, but keep our weapons systems in standby mode. Let's see what they decide to do next." As Elena settled back into her command chair, she couldn't help but think that Admiral Korth and his scanning officer were probably having a very interesting conversation right now. The aliens had expected to encounter a primitive species with crude technology, but their scans had revealed something that didn't fit their understanding of how the galaxy worked. The question now was whether the Viridian Empire would choose wisdom or pride in their next move. Elena hoped they would choose wisdom, but she was prepared for either possibility. Outside the Defiance Hull, space remained deceptively peaceful as two very different philosophies of technology and warfare faced each other across the void. The awakening of human technology. Science Officer Zefik stared at his displays in growing horror. The data from their deep scan of the human vessel made absolutely no sense according to everything the Viridian Empire understood about galactic technology development. He had run the analysis 17 times, each result more disturbing than the last. "Fleet Admiral Korth," Zefix called out, his voice trembling slightly. "Sir, you need to see these readings immediately." Admiral Korth was still basking in the satisfaction of his conversation with the primitive human captain. 17 Viridian warships against one crude alien vessel was hardly a fair fight, but the Empire had learned that overwhelming displays of force shortened conflicts and reduced casualties on both sides. "What is it, Zefix?" "More evidence of their primitive construction methods. Sir, the scan results are anomalous. The human ship's outer hull appears to be composed of standard metal alloys, but the readings show microscopic structures that shouldn't exist. The armor plating is 12 meters thick, but it's not just thick. It's layered with materials that seem to shift and adapt at the molecular level." Korth walked over to Zefix's station, his earlier confidence beginning to waver. "Explain what you mean by adapt." "The armor appears to be alive, sir. Not biological, but the metal itself seems capable of reconfiguring its molecular structure in response to external stimuli. Our scanners detected thousands of tiny energy conduits running through the hull, but they're not powering anything we can identify. It's as if the entire ship's structure is some kind of advanced computer network." Admiral Korth studied the displays, his forearms clasped behind his back. "What about their weapons systems?" "That's where it gets truly strange, sir. We detected what appears to be a basic energy projection system, but the power conduits for it run throughout the entire ship. According to these readings, they could potentially convert any part of their hull into a weapon emplacement, but that's impossible. No species has that kind of technology." Korth's golden eyes narrowed. "What about their propulsion?" "The exhaust signature indicates fusion drives, but, sir, their engine compartment contains energy levels that suggest something far more advanced. The power generation readings are off the scale. They're producing enough energy to power a small city, but they're only using a fraction of it. Across space, aboard the UES Defiant, Captain Alina Vasquez was receiving her own intelligence briefing. Dr. Sarah Kim had been analyzing the alien scanning techniques and had discovered some fascinating information about Viridian technology. Captain, Sarah reported, their scanning methods are incredibly sophisticated, but they're designed to analyze conventional spacecraft. They're looking for standard components, engines, weapons, life support, communication arrays. They have no protocols for scanning adaptive or modular systems. Commander Marcus Chen looked up from his tactical display. So they're seeing what they expect to see, not what we actually have. Exactly. Their scanners are giving them accurate data, but they're interpreting it through the lens of their own technological paradigm. To them, we look like we're compensating for primitive technology by building everything bigger and more redundant. Elena nodded thoughtfully. What's your assessment of their actual capabilities? Dr. Kim. They're powerful, Captain, but in a very rigid way. Their ships appear to be built around fixed configurations. Maximum armor, maximum weapons, maximum power generation. But they don't seem to have any ability to adapt or modify their systems during operation. They're like a very advanced hammer, incredibly effective at what they're designed to do, but not much flexibility for other tasks. Chief Engineer David Park's voice came through the communication system from the engineering deck. Captain, I've been monitoring their energy signatures. These aliens are running their ships at nearly 100% capacity just for normal operations. Their power distribution systems are maxed out. Their shields are drawing enormous amounts of energy, and their weapons appear to require several minutes of charging time before they can fire. Elena was beginning to understand the tactical situation more clearly. So they're operating at maximum efficiency all the time, which gives them impressive capabilities, but no room for adaptation or emergency power. That's correct, Captain. By contrast, we're currently running at about 5% of our total capacity. If we needed to, we could increase our power output by a factor of 20 without straining any of our primary systems. Back on the Viridian flagship, Science Officer Zefix was making increasingly disturbing discoveries. Fleet Admiral, I've been analyzing the human ship's communication array. It's not just a communication system. It appears to be some kind of quantum entanglement network. If I'm reading this correctly, they have instantaneous communication with their home system, regardless of distance. Admiral Korth felt a chill run through his body. Instantaneous communication across interstellar distances was theoretical even for the Viridian Empire. Are you certain? The energy signatures are unmistakable, sir. But there's more. I've detected what appears to be a complex AI network integrated throughout their ship. Not just computer systems, but actual artificial intelligence managing thousands of simultaneous processes. Sir, this level of technology integration is centuries beyond anything in our databases. Korth was beginning to realize that his assumptions about the human vessel might have been catastrophically wrong. But the Viridian Empire had never encountered a species that could match their technology, let alone exceed it. This had to be some kind of scanning error or misinterpretation. Zefix, prepare a demonstration charge. We'll show these humans the power of Viridian weapons technology. Perhaps a display of our capabilities will help them understand their position. Sir, I strongly recommend against any aggressive action until we better understand their technological capabilities. Nonsense. One primitive vessel against 17 of our finest warships. The mathematics are simple. Admiral Korth turned to his weapons officer. Charge the primary plasma cannon to 30% power, enough to disable their propulsion systems without destroying the ship entirely. Charging now, sir. Estimated time to full charge. 4 minutes. Elena received the alert from her tactical officer immediately. Captain, the lead alien vessel is powering up what appears to be a large energy weapon. Based on the power buildup, it's going to be a significant blast. Elena stood up from her command chair, her expression remaining calm despite the escalating situation. Commander Chen, are they targeting us specifically? Yes, Captain. The weapon is aimed directly at our engine section. Based on the energy levels, this appears to be intended as a disabling shot rather than a killing blow. Dr. Kim looked up from her analysis. Captain, they're probably trying to demonstrate their superior firepower. Classic intimidation tactic. Show the primitive aliens that resistance is futile. Elena walked to the main display, watching the alien fleet holding formation around their flagship. Chief Park, how long would it take to bring our defensive systems to full operational status? All defensive systems can be online immediately, Captain. Our adaptive armor is already analyzing the incoming threat and preparing countermeasures. And if we wanted to return fire? Commander Chen checked his tactical display. All weapon systems are ready, Captain. We could have multiple response options available within seconds of any attack. Elena nodded. Dr. Kim, what do you think will happen when they fire at us? Sarah smiled grimly. Well, Captain, they're about to discover that their 30% power plasma cannon is going to hit armor that's specifically designed to absorb and redirect that exact type of energy. Our adaptive shielding will probably convert their attack into additional power for our own systems. And then they're going to realize they've made a very serious mistake. The Viridian plasma cannon fired, sending a brilliant beam of energy across space toward the Defiant. The weapon was powerful enough to destroy most ships in the galaxy, and Admiral Korth watched with satisfaction as the attack struck the human vessel. His satisfaction lasted exactly 3 seconds. Instead of exploding or losing power, the human ship seemed to absorb the energy blast entirely. The Defiant's hull briefly glowed with a soft blue light, and then returned to normal. There was no damage, no system failures, no distress signals. Zephyx, Admiral Korth said quietly, "What just happened?" Science Officer Zephyx was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, their ship absorbed our attack completely. Not just absorbed it. They appear to have converted it into additional power for their own systems. Their energy output just increased by exactly the amount we hit them with. That's impossible." "Sir, they're hailing us." On the Defiance bridge, Captain Elena Vasquez straightened her uniform and nodded to her communications officer. "Put them through." Admiral Korth's image appeared on the main screen, but his confident demeanor was completely gone. The alien looked confused and more than a little frightened. "Admiral," Elena said pleasantly, "I believe you wanted to demonstrate your weapons capabilities. Thank you for that. It was very educational. How did your ship survive that attack?" "Survive? Admiral, we appreciate the additional power. Our engines are running much more efficiently now." Elena paused, letting that sink in. "However, I'm afraid we can't let that attack go completely unanswered. It would set a bad precedent for future diplomatic relations." "What do you mean?" Elena turned to her tactical officer. "Commander Chen, please disable the weapons and propulsion systems on the 3 nearest Viridian ships. Use minimum force." "Understood, Captain." "Targeting now." The Defiant's weapon systems came online with frightening speed. What had appeared to be a simple communications array suddenly revealed itself as a sophisticated targeting system. The ship's hull began to reconfigure itself, opening dozens of ports that had been invisible seconds before. Admiral Korth watched in horror as the human ship transformed before his eyes. Armor plating shifted and moved, revealing weapon systems that seemed to emerge from the ship's very structure. Energy began building at multiple points along the hull, but unlike Viridian weapons, these systems charged to full power in mere seconds. "This is impossible," Korth whispered. The Defiant fired 3 precise shots. Each beam struck a different Viridian warship, but instead of exploding, the alien vessels simply went dark. Their engines stopped, their weapons powered down, and their shields collapsed. "Admiral," Elena said calmly, "your ships are undamaged, but their primary systems have been temporarily disabled. Consider this a demonstration of human precision technology." Science Officer Zephyx was staring at his instruments in complete bewilderment. "Sir, they didn't destroy our ships. They selectively disabled specific systems while leaving everything else intact. That level of precision is beyond anything we've ever seen. Elena continued speaking to the alien commander. Admiral Korth, I think there may have been some misunderstanding about the nature of our respective technologies. The ship you've been speaking with is the UES Defiant, a patrol vessel from Earth's local defense fleet. Local defense fleet? Yes, Admiral. We're not military in the traditional sense. We're more like, well, like a police patrol. Our job is to maintain security in the outer colonies and provide assistance to civilian vessels. Admiral Korth felt his 4 legs nearly give out beneath him. Police patrol. The real Earth Defense Force operates from installations much deeper in human space. They have ships that make the Defiant look like a small transport vessel. Elena paused, then smiled. Would you like to reconsider your territorial claims, Admiral? Back on the Viridian flagship, Zephyx was making calculations that filled him with existential dread. Sir, if what the human captain is saying is true, then we've just attacked what amounts to their equivalent of a system patrol craft, and it easily disabled 3 of our best warships. Admiral Korth was beginning to understand the true scope of his error. The Viridian Empire had built its expansion on the assumption that their technology was superior to anything they might encounter. But they had just discovered a species that was centuries ahead of them in every meaningful way. Zephyx, what are your recommendations? Sir, I recommend immediate withdrawal and a complete reassessment of our expansion policies. We need to inform War Prime Corathex that we've encountered a species that represents an existential threat to the Empire. Elena watched the alien commander struggle with the new reality. She felt somewhat sorry for him. It was never easy to discover that your fundamental assumptions about the universe were wrong. Admiral Korth, I want to assure you that humanity has no aggressive intentions toward the Viridian Empire. We're perfectly happy to coexist peacefully. However, any future attempts to claim sovereignty over human space will result in a much less gentle response. I understand, Captain Vasquez. We will withdraw immediately and report this contact to our superiors. That sounds like a wise decision, Admiral. Safe travels. The transmission ended, and within minutes the Viridian fleet was retreating toward the edge of the system. The 3 disabled ships were being towed by their companions, their crews probably working frantically to restore basic functionality to their systems. Commander Chen looked up from his tactical display. Captain, should we be concerned about them returning with a larger fleet? Elena settled back into her command chair and picked up her coffee mug, making a face when she remembered it had gone cold hours ago. Commander, they just learned that what they thought was a primitive cargo vessel was actually an advanced patrol ship that could disable their entire fleet without taking any damage. Do you think they're going to come back? Dr. Kim was already analyzing the encounter from a scientific perspective. Captain, based on their reaction and the data we gathered about their technology, I suspect the Viridian Empire is going to be doing some serious soul-searching about their expansion policies. What do you mean, Dr. Kim? Well, Captain, they've apparently been conquering species for decades based on the assumption that their technology was superior. They just discovered that their assumptions were completely wrong. They're going to have to reconsider everything they thought they knew about galactic power structures. Chief Engineer Park's voice came through the communication system. Captain, I'm showing all systems back to normal operational status. Should I prepare a report for Earth Command? Elena considered this. The encounter with the Viridian Empire was certainly noteworthy, but in the grand scheme of things, it was probably just another case of an aggressive species learning that the galaxy was more complex than they had assumed. Chief Park, prepare a standard first contact report. Include all the technical data we gathered, but classify it as a routine patrol encounter. Earth Command will want to know about the Viridian Empire, but I don't think this rises to the level of a major threat assessment. Understood, Captain. Elena looked out at the stars, thinking about Admiral Korth and his fleet retreating toward whatever empire they had built on the assumption of technological superiority. In a few hours, they would be reporting to their superiors that they had encountered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The Viridian Empire would have to decide whether to adapt to this new reality or continue believing in their own superiority. Alina hoped they would choose wisdom, but she knew that species accustomed to dominance rarely gave up their assumptions easily. Dr. Kim, what's our next patrol checkpoint? New Geneva system, Captain. We should arrive there in about 18 hours. Excellent. Commander Chen, resume normal patrol operations. I'll be in my ready room if anyone needs me. As Alina left the bridge, she reflected on the encounter. The Defiant had been designed to handle exactly this kind of situation, a peaceful but decisive demonstration of human capabilities to species that might otherwise make unfortunate assumptions about humanity's place in the galaxy. The ship returned to its normal configuration, weapon ports sealing themselves and armor plates shifting back to their standard positions. To any external observer, the Defiant once again looked like nothing more than an oversized cargo vessel on a routine patrol. But somewhere in the depths of Viridian space, War Prime Corathex was about to receive a report that would change everything the Empire thought it knew about the galaxy. And Captain Alina Vasquez was already thinking about her next cup of coffee. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of the species that traveled between them. But for the Viridian Empire, the universe had just become a much more complex and dangerous place.